Hey, it's just so Trish. So here we are homeschooling, and sometimes it gets so overwhelming to figure out what you need for curriculum. And so I thought it would be important to really just verbalize what I have learned to understand. There's 4 parts to language arts. And sometimes this can get confusing, especially in the beginning. So I figured I would let you know and explain like the 4 parts of language arts to teach. So here we go. Okay, so there are 4 parts to language arts. Some of you are going to hear this and be like, well, yeah. And some of you are going to be like, oh, that makes sense. And it was really tough for me in the very beginning to figure out what to teach because I wanted to teach my kindergarten all 4 parts. And really in kindergarten, you don't need to teach all 4 parts. It's kind of a building block process. So what are the 4 parts? Reading, spelling, grammar, and writing. Okay, see it? Need to take notes? They're all right there. Okay, this gets a little tricky because when you're first grade, until you learn to read, you don't need to worry too much about this. You can do it a little bit, or you can just wait and start. You don't need to worry too much about this. What you need to do is practice writing and reading. Writing at kindergarten, first grade, second grade is way different than writing at 5th grade. Writing at kindergarten, first grade is the mechanics of penmanship because you have to know the mechanics. Later on, we begin talking about the narrative and being able to communicate ideas. But the first step is learning to do the mechanics. Reading, the first step, obviously, is to learn to read. And then it begins going into reading comprehension, main ideas, and the whole 9 yards. So there's 4 steps to language arts. The big part that comes in is sometimes you will get curriculums or you'll find curriculums that has all of it in one, or you'll see spelling over here, and you can overwhelm yourself by grabbing this curriculum that's an all-in-one with language arts and then go ahead and adding all the other parts, and then all of a sudden your kid is just like, and you're like, it's just so much. So that's why I figured I would talk about it. And the other aspect is where to start. So if you watch any of my other videos, you know that when it comes to kindergarten, it's minimal. Kindergarten for me is all about phonetic awareness. And phonetic awareness means they can hear the sounds when I say monkey. What is the what letters You know, it becomes alphabetical knowledge. I know the name, I know the sounds, I can identify what letter is the sound that begins this word. I can make ma. You know, very minor work. We talk about rhyming, but all of that's kind of preparing the ground to teach reading in first grade. And that's where I teach reading. I do not teach reading in kindergarten. I feel like it's a lot of effort for minimal gain. Some of you may highly disagree because I know that there's amazing families that have children reading at 3 years old. None of those have been my children. None whatsoever. So if you're a mama who's like, oh my goodness, we're trying to do kindergarten, they're not reading. I have been there. I've been there in 2nd grade and we're still not reading. I know how it feels. So the very first part for kindergarten, I believe it's important to begin learning your phonetics and begin developing the hand muscles in your hand for the mechanics of writing. Okay, for those of you who have not watched any of my other videos who are like, this woman is cuckoo, I have skipped kindergarten completely, had made it just fun and light, and did not begin teaching formal reading till 1st grade. We finished up the 1st grade year at a 2.8 or 2.5, which means she was already advanced for where she was. So it worked. I have also done preschool reading, kindergarten reading, 1st grade reading, 2nd grade reading, and the child still didn't know to read. So I know that there's a certain point that when the child is ready, they will learn to read. And there's a certain point of no matter what you do and try, they're not going to learn until the time's right. So I prefer not to exhaust myself when they're little, because you can either take a year to teach the alphabet or you could take 4 weeks to teach the alphabet, depending on maturity. And that's my feelings, and that's what I've put into practice, and I've seen results by doing it. So that is my whatever. Okay, so reading. I wait till 1st grade. So kindergarten, it's all about understanding and knowing the sounds. You can do it via video, a couple cute little workbooks. It's very light. It should be easy. It should be fun. And, you know, the mechanics of learning how to hold a pencil. Coloring is huge, because before you can expect your child to make an A, you have to have the strength and control. Coloring is building those muscles in the hand. But then in 1st grade, we begin just very basic phonetics. Not very basic. We essentially start phonetics and kind of go lightning speed through. And during the phonetic process, we are teaching the phonetic rules to do spelling. So you have to have some time learning to read, understanding how to read. And when you're doing the CVC, which is a consonant, vowel, consonant, short vowel, reading, you can begin putting into practice. You hear how to read it. Now can you hear how to spell it? So that's when spelling comes in. And then you begin your sentence writing. Again, you're kind of, for your writing is copy work, penmanship, and it's practicing the example. You can do the communicating of doing pictures, doing narratives, coming back to you. And I know I'm really meaning to be like, it's just these 4 parts, but it's kind of a little bit of, you know, they really do fit together, and they fit together well like gloves, or puzzle pieces. Maybe gloves is not a good one. So, you know, and then on the grammar part, it's understanding that, you know, we got capitals and what we capitalize, and we put periods at the end, and there's a noun and a verb. What a noun is. So as you go through, you will leave, like reading will transform from learning to read to reading for comprehension and meaning. So reading, from learning to read to reading to learn. And that process happens between about 1st and 3rd grade. And then you have your spelling. If you're learning phonetically, typically your spelling will come much easier. I have a child that learned sight reading. I could never figure out how she learned to read, which made it really difficult to teach everybody else how to read, because I couldn't figure out how the oldest learned to read. And then it's really shown up in 5th grade that it was sight word reading. She would find the little words within the word and figure out the word. And even though I tried to teach her phonetically, it hasn't been very well taken, because she was already trained on the one side of the brain. So her spelling is horrible. So we are doing a ton of phonetic training, which years past I would be like, why are we teaching her reading phonetics when she knows how to read and she reads at a high level? Well, fast forward to now, I realize we need to phonetic train so we can help her understand the coding process of spelling. So that's why. Grammar becomes a big one. And grammar really is, in my opinion, and what I've seen through curriculum across the board, is something that really kicks into play about 2nd grade. And it goes on sometimes up to 10th. And by 10th, it's editing. And grammar is kind of one that ties really deeply into writing, because you're actually preparing the mechanics, the speech mechanics of writing. You know, you got the handwriting mechanics that happens in the very beginning that gives you the mechanical method of putting it on paper. But the grammar is what makes your words and your ideas make sense when you write them. And then writing is learning to do the narrative. So these are the 4 aspects of language arts. So if you're looking at a whole curriculum, you know, you might want to consider, you know, what is it leaving out, so you know where to supplement. Expect that your reading doesn't always tie into these when you're learning to read and separate. They tend to be separate, and this is why. There's a couple curriculums that has all of this in one. I think it was like learning language through literature is one. I've considered it. One of the problems we run into, and why I had to leave a curriculum that had like the bottom 3 all together, was my child was advanced here but not here. And they have to be at the same level to be in an all-in-one curriculum. So since then, I've had to walk away from having to have, I'm thinking it's going to come out, from having these all combined into one. So that's been a big factor of why we moved out of that. And so I find sometimes it's easier just to bring them back together. Well, I might have another child that does fine and I can put them into all-in-one workbook. So it's one of those things to consider, but realize when you are just starting off on your homeschool journey, this is handwriting, this is learning to read. These two will come later. Focus here. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. So anyways, I hope this helps understanding the 4 parts. I know that it would have been really helpful for me to have had somebody just say, Trish, there's 4 parts of language arts. This is what they mean. Don't worry about this right now. That would have been really helpful. So I hope this helps you. Talk to you later.